Hello again! As usual, this is Becca going by Netcat or Netcat's Meow when online, and welcome back to my little black box res room for another week discussing Linden scripting language. Now, as I believe I said last time that I would talk about a way to store the position and rotation data in the object's description, which is part of how I handle this Rezzers system, and to actually separate the two of them. So we're going to be going over a couple of new commands this time. As you see, I've brought back out the thing before. It reses it automatically. After a few seconds, it takes the rotation and position that were specified right here. So what we're going to do to start changing this up is we're going to create a new method for storing that information right here in the description. The way we're going to do that is state entry. Pay no mind to my notifications over here, please. Set object description. We already knew how to do that basic part before. String. Get position. Now here's where we're going to start changing it up. You can actually combine different things into one complete string by adding plus, at which point I could just go ahead and do this. String get rot. And that would work. In order to actually see the difference, we're going to click off and then back on. You have the position listed there. Then that ends and you have the beginning of the rotation over here. But that isn't quite how we want to do that. Reason is we want to have something a little easier to set a break between the two pieces of data. So we're actually going to add something of our choosing in here. And that is, we put the quotation marks, it's called a pipe, and we'll save it again. This pipe will give us something to look for to know where the break between the two is. And it didn't know how to process that into there. Alright, not really a problem. We can put anything in there we like. It isn't going to be featured in the either rotation or position. So let's try that with an asterisk. The pipe is not a commonly used symbol. It's why I like to use it, but I forgot it cannot be put in there. The asterisk, however, could. There it is. There's our divider. That will let us use something called substring, which I will show you. We'll actually need a couple. Substring index is one of the two commands we're going to need. It returns and enters the index of the first instance of pattern in source. What does that mean? That means it'll tell us the numeric value for the position in that string of text that our asterisk is. That'll be very useful for the other thing we're going to use. So we'll pop this back open. My favorite little debug control. Actually, need to keep this in state entry. Almost goofed. If debug. Owner say. Substring index. The source is going to be description, and the thing we're looking for is an asterisk. And actually, let's go ahead and... yeah, that should actually work out. Syntax error was... oh, needed another of those because the substring index had its own brackets, which I closed, but it's contained within an owner say, which I almost did not close. There we go. The asterisk is found at 34. So, if we come up here, now I'm going to show you how to start breaking it down. So, move it. If debug, we're also going to need the actual values up here as well. Designated position is plus. Actually, we don't even have a thing for plus yet, so we'll put them in there because we don't really need those unless we're as strings, unless we're checking this. So in fact, vector, position, rotation, rot. Those are the ones we're actually going to end up using. So the next thing we'll need is an integer break equals, and that'll be the substring index down here. Copy and paste that. So the first thing it'll report, if we have debug turned on during this, is that the break is at that position. Now we're going to go for the other thing we need. We need substring. We have the substring index, which tells us where the string will break. Get substring. The string source is still going to be the description. The start, since the first thing we had was the position, we establish it here. So we're going to start at the beginning of the string. As we've covered several times when you're dealing with a computer, it generally believes the start is at 0. And then the end would be at break. Name not defined within scope, which is fine. We bring that up there. And there it completes. The reason that happened is because when this tried to compile, it didn't know what break was. Because these are variables inside the specific function, the specific operation of move it. This is global. Everything up here gets taken as one whole thing. However, when you're getting inside here, the order of operation actually matters. So the break had to exist before it could be called. Now, I could have just put that all in there, come to think of it. I was getting just a tiny bit ahead of myself. There we go. And if we click it, it will report break at 34, exactly how that was. And it lists specifically only from the bracket to the bracket. This is important because it can then treat that as a vector. As we have it set up here, vector position, we're casting the result as a vector because it's a get substring. It would naturally be a string. We're casting it into a vector, which is why we have to recast it as a string back here. We're going to do the same thing with rotation here. But instead of starting at 0, starting at 35, and going to -1. What that means is go all the way to the end. Don't stop until you get to the end. Recast it as a string so that we can see the results and make sure that all is good. Hit that. There we go. Because the first one stopped, the position stopped before the asterisk, and the rotation picked up just after. We get both of those in there. Now, since we've looked at it and seen that it should work, we're going to go ahead and test it to make sure it does work. And all the rest of this is just how it was last week, except for sticking that little debug right there in. None of the rest of this got, well, I also changed the set object description. But the res from Rezzer, sleep, and move it, those did not change. So since it will still move on touch, we can easily test. Yep, it read them as rotation and as position. Because of putting that asterisk in there, gave us something we could look for that would never show up in either the vector for the position or the rotation for rotation. So it was an easy thing to lock onto with get substring index, or with substring index. Once you had the index, it's very easy to know where to cut in get substring. And you can do this for a whole lot of other, for a whole lot more information. You can put I forget what the actual limit of characters in an object description is. Let's look that up real quick. Place set object description. It is limited to 127 bytes. Any string longer than that will be truncated. So I'm not 100% sure what that equates to in actual characters of text, but it's quite a lot. So anything that's within that limit, you can use. Here we go. Pipe character and new line character are not legal in description. They're replaced with question mark. That was the thing I forgot. It says it right there. So the advantage of sticking it in the description is that it becomes non-volatile. What that means is if the script resets, it doesn't forget them. It's stored in a place that won't just go away. So it's a very useful place for saving information in your build. If you want to be able to allow a object to be reset, a scripting object to be reset, but still hold certain values, that's a good way to do it. Another thing you can use this trick for is if you put things in a note card to read into a script. There is a way to do that, and I will be covering it eventually. It's just a bit of a pain in the rear, so I haven't gone over it just yet. That would give you a way of breaking down multiple pieces of information on a line, and it's very similar to something used in a lot of data processing, sort of low level isn't the right word, relatively light data processing applications. It's a file called a comma separated value file. Uses basically the same trick. It just uses a designated character that says this is where one piece of information stops and the next piece of information begins. So hopefully that helps you out, and it gives you a little bit closer to being able to set up a Rezzers system like this of your own if you so choose to. And in fact, we're going to prove that all of this still works, because even when that answer should be obvious, you always, always, always test. Never assume, always test. Res from Rezzer. There we go. It works as expected. So, that was this week's episode dealing with Linden scripting language. I hope to see you all back next week. We'll continue to look into Rezzers systems. Basically, I will go over how I send the call from somewhere and tie it all together with the avatar detection system that we've gone over before. And you'll pretty much understand how my black box works. I'll also be probably putting it out on the marketplace in the not too distant future once I actually create a video dedicated to using it. So people that don't particularly want to take the time to learn how to create one on their own can go ahead and just buy mine. Those that have the inclination and want to put the work in, I'll have taught you how to make it. So that's it for this week. As usual, this has been Becca, going by Netcat or Netcat's Meow, most places online. And good day, good luck, happy scripting. Please make sure to keep likes and comments coming. If you have any questions or concerns, you may have noticed I have a tendency to respond to those. And as usual, these videos normally go live by noon Eastern time. So yeah, take care.